Well, 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 well. One of the Harmon Smith predictions that nobody else noticed, nobody else was talking about, nobody else brought up, has completely come true. The best selling game on Nintendo Switch 2 right now is Mario Kart World. Everyone knew this. This was a big deal. This was going to be like a huge hit. Like, everyone knew that Mario Kart World was going to be a success. But the second most successful game on Nintendo Switch, the game that is number 2 on the eShop, is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom upgrade pack. The $10 upgrade for Tears of the Kingdom. I believe like the actual full game is on there too, but like further down for people who hadn't bought the game yet. So the Tears of the Kingdom upgrade pack, the $10 upgrade, is number 2 on the eShop. So for those of you who don't know what this means, it means that The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom is a massive success on Nintendo Switch 2. It means that people are still buying and playing this game even after all this time. 2 years later, the giant cope and the giant seed that nobody played or liked this game has completely collapsed. And I think the gaming community, seething so much about every other Nintendo Switch 2 game on the market, specifically Mario Kart World and some of the other games on there, they are going to be completely blindsided by The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild being low-key major drawing points for the Nintendo Switch 2 launch. Because you don't seem to understand that these versions of the game are massive improvements over the original release. Everyone I've spoken to who has played these games, I myself have not done it yet. Everyone I've spoken to who has played these versions of the game have told me that they look and play amazingly. These are the best versions of the game available. There is a very clear visual upgrade from the original releases. And they seem to have put a lot of work into them and made a lot of changes. People are beginning to realize that there's a lot of cool new lore additions, right? Using the smart notes feature or whatever. Everything I've heard about these games, these versions of the game, has been spectacular, and it really can't be misunderstood that this is something that the gaming community has completely failed to downplay, because the gaming community was almost exclusively focused on new games, right? The gaming community was almost exclusively focused on downplaying Mario Kart World and Nintendo Switch Welcome Tour. Nobody thought to question the release of old Zelda games. Everyone thought that they're old, who's going to play them? But the reality is, these games, the upgraded versions of upcoming games like Mario Party and Kirby, are going to be hugely successful and popular in their own right. People don't seem to understand that people are going to want to play these games on Nintendo Switch 2. And the success of Tears of the Kingdom, and to a lesser extent Breath of the Wild, really strongly demonstrate that. And this is a factor of the Switch 2 that I think a lot of people don't really understand. The fact of the matter is, older Nintendo games are still readily available on Nintendo Switch and will still continue to be successful on Nintendo Switch 2. Being released on Switch 2 have led to both Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild having huge success and finding a new audience and bringing back a lot of old people who played the game when they first came out, right? This is a critical aspect of the console that people don't want to acknowledge. That games like this can still do well and still find an audience, and now that like the community isn't actively downplaying them, will reach a massive audience of people who understand just how good these games actually are. And this has been my point, ever since the Nintendo announced these versions of the game, that like this is going to lead to both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom selling several million more units and bringing in like significantly more revenue and like far outpacing boring, derivative, uninspired games like Elden Ring, like Baldur's Gate 3. This is, proof positive that Nintendo is just can keep those games relevant far more and longer than like anyone else in the industry, right? To this day, like nobody else has been able to produce anything like Breath of the Wild. Like they are 10 years behind at this point. And the general gaming community doesn't want to admit it, but Breath of the Wild is the new standard when it comes to open world games. Not Cyberpunk, not Witcher 3, not Skyrim. Breath of the Wild stopped that a decade ago, and not a single game has been able to catch up with it since. It's been an embarrassing fact of the industry of just Nintendo is just the only relevant gaming studio in existence. And more and more people are going to realize that all the time. It is going to be downright amazing continuing to see like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom continue to be extremely relevant going forward. Seeing more and more people realize just how different Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are from each other. Seeing people like Darkside Phil and their carefully constructed narrative, like about how the game isn't that good, just completely collapse in and of itself as more and more people are exposed to these games and realize just how good they actually are. It's going to be an amazing experience. And it was always inevitable, Like, it didn't matter, like, how many Game of the Year awards you gave to Baldur's Gate 3 or how many, like, deep lore videos you made for Elden Ring. Like, the reality is those games were never, ever, ever going to be as popular or successful as The Legend of Zelda. Nintendo has won, and there is just nothing you can do about it.